With the 2025 season finale taking place in Palo Alto, California on Saturday late night, the question that many people in the country would have, would the Irish have a late night graveyard hiccup that people read about on Sunday morning? Or would the Irish put on a show up until the early risers and early sleepers of the College Football Playoff Committee go to bed? Or would it just be one of those blah type performances that really doesn't wow the CFP committee? Despite the fact that there is an ongoing debate about certain teams that should not be in the college football playoff and ones that should be in there, the question still remains, are those teams one of the top 12? And are the Irish among them? These questions and more we will tackle on this season finale edition of Talk Like a Champion. Welcome back, Irish Nation. I'm pleased to have you with me on this season finale edition. Well, not for the show, but regular season finale, I should say, of Talk Like a Champion. Of course, you're talking with the one and only Mr. CeeLo, and I must be honest with you guys, I'm really sad to see it go, because as many of you know, we have been the subject of a lot of controversy, being that a lot of the discussion has been about Notre Dame and its, being in the college football playoff against head-to-head Miami, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. I don't get so caught up in that because, needless to say, I got to get into this. The Format Podcast responded to my buddy Brad, and Brad said Indy rocks, but the other way around. But he says that in Format Podcast, which I'm gonna get with you real soon, I know what you're saying. I'm gonna try to set something up with you, hopefully after the announcement of the college football playoff, or maybe after the championship Saturday. We'll see. I'm definitely trying to get there. I got to get my equipment set up to stream. But, didn't they beat the mighty SEC champions in the college football playoff last season? Oh! He got you, Brad. That's what I tell him all the time. Needless to say, when we really start to talk about what, is going on as far as what this playoff committee has done to this, I don't have a problem with the committee as long as they understand that realistically, I get it. Sometimes you say the best 12 teams don't get in, but I do think there needs to be a gateway in. And I think with a week off, I will be able to go through that with you. I've been talking with people about it. Maybe I should license it. But I've been hearing other people say the same thing that I was talking about. And yeah, I might need to tell them I need to get a fine on that. But needless to say, I think ultimately when we look at where things have navigated when it comes to where the playoff has gone and where it's going, I think truthfully, what needs to happen is there needs to be some heads come together. They need to realize that, yes, it is part of getting all the conferences in there. However, maybe this ain't the year for it. And I'm not just saying it because Notre Dame is one of the elite teams in there. I think ultimately when you look at where Miami is, and the argument has been continued, Miami can't have a horse in this because needless to say, yeah, you won the game and everybody just said it. After you beat Notre Dame, you go back and listen to the broadcast. What did they say? All Miami has to do is win out. You had a favorable schedule after you played Notre Dame. You messed that up. Only you, Mario Cristobal, and your team can be responsible for what you didn't do in Louisville and what you didn't do with SMU. That's on you. You lost to Louisville at home. At home. By a larger margin than we beat you, than you beat us by. So, yeah. I mean, you allowed one screw up, then you turn around and lost to SMU.
Bruh.
Come on now. Come on. You can't sit here and be upset when you go out there and you lay a brick on teams that aren't up to par. Just saying. But enough with that. Let us look at some other comments. I just had to throw that in there, Brad. The Format Podcast is going to be a platform that I will be going on and trying to enjoy myself and having a good time. And hopefully we're able to, give them some credibility as well as we get some credibility from them. That's what this is all about, when we can get great minds to go together and have these types of discussions and really get a conversation going that really needs to happen. And when you really generalize and start to think about where things are, especially when it comes to the Southeastern Conference being such a big player, and Brad being my friend, and he's definitely one of those that does not ride under the SEC banner. He's one of those guys that sits there and he tells it like it is. And there's so many people that they push this SEC narrative to the point that I was listening to Josh Pate talk about it today. Format, I know you say he's a fair guy, but when you sit here and you say that there are 12 teams that were ranked in the top 25 and 4 of them were in the SEC that are not even ranked anymore. The overinflation of your conference. Just saying. And we talk about, how good Vanderbilt is. Tennessee is not a good football team. Now, I don't care what happened with Georgia and Tennessee. I don't care. I mean, for that matter, Tennessee would still be ranked in the top 10 if you're still banking on that Georgia victory. That's what Alabama's hanging to right now. They're clinging on that, we beat Georgia in Athens.
So?
And sorry, Brad, I'm not even sold that Georgia's a good team. And then you want to throw the Texas thing in there because they knocked off A&M. Look, SMU pulled an upset over Miami. Louisville did the same thing. We've seen bad teams pull victories out of their Bahuka Duka. It happens. That don't mean they belong in the top 10.
Stupid.
Texas could have beat Ohio State. This is why I'm not sold on Ohio State as the team that everybody's talking about. I'm just not. Now, granted, there could be some stuff they're holding back. I mean, it could be. But to sit there and basically say in a nutshell that this is all the only demographic we're going to go on is head-to-head, and we're going to say, okay, a lot of the SEC teams beat these teams. No, the fact is they were just overrated. The SEC has always had its teams overinflated, and for what reason, there is no answer. All right, let us look here. As Brad says, howdy, what's up? The Format Podcast, what's up to you as well? Josh Pate is pretty fair. Pretty's a good word. I'm not going to say he's overly fair because you could tell his favorites are in the SEC. And this is where I really get sick and tired of hearing people talking about the SEC bias is not real. And then you get Whinebum who gets up there and talks about Arkansas, who plays everybody in the conference tough, but then they get us and they get that.
Supreme victory. Perfect.
Now, and I'm going to keep giving it that treatment because here's the reality. Whinebum wants to sit there and say how tough the grind is in the SEC. No. Miami has found out the grind in any conference is tough. But you sit there and you solidify that narrative by saying it over and over again, and you think people will follow you. Intelligent people that actually watch the games, like myself, the Format Podcast, and Brad, we understand. Anybody can be beat on any given Saturday. That don't make it the SEC special. If Notre Dame going into Fayetteville didn't prove nothing else, well, we'd rather y'all just not play each other and just let us play y'all.
Is that your best?
I mean, because the rate that y'all are going, y'all are trying to make this like this is the SEC Big Ten Invitational. I mean, go ahead, have at it, and then just put about 5 teams over here to wait on y'all after you get through beating the tar out of each other. Because to me, it's just absolutely ridiculous. You did the same thing with the BCS, and now you're trying to do the same thing with the whole college football playoff. And you want to sit here and blame the committee? No, I'm looking at the committee, and I'm hoping they stay unbiased like they are right now. You want to say them picking Notre Dame is biased? No, they watch the games. Try it sometime. And I'm talking to you, Whinebum, and I'm talking to all those crybabies out there that sit there and say it's a travesty that Miami is ranked below Notre Dame. You lost 2 games to unranked opponents. Texas just got through getting the floor mopped with them by Georgia and Athens. And then they turn around and beat A&M the next week.
You some bitches couldn't close an umbrella.
And like, I don't know how to take that. They're one of the top 10. No, they ain't. You got 1 win and you were dead to the world. That don't all of a sudden shoot you above the world with 3 losses. It does not. And you got a loss to a Florida team. That's just like me being the effing man running around here talking about, oh, I whooped the kids behind. But then I went out there and I threw 1 lucky punch and knocked out a 20-year-old man. And then the very next week, I get my tail absolutely dominated by a dude that's half my size.
Stupid.
That don't make me nobody. Before we get into the show, like I said, that doesn't make me the man. And guys, we are getting into the holiday season. And if you are like me, you like looking good, you like smelling good. So with that being said, let us have a word with our sponsor about how the holidays can make you feel and look like the effing man. This episode of Talk Like a Champion is brought to you by TF Man Whipped Cream Tallow, the only skin cream approved by men who wrestle bears for cardio. Now listen, gentlemen, most lotions out there smell like a field of daisy, kissed by a unicorn. TF Man, however, this stuff smells like a handshake between a lumberjack and a thunderstorm. This cream is made from grass-fed beef tallow, the same ancient ingredient your great-granddaddy used after fighting off 3 coyotes and a tax collector. It's whipped smoother than a rookie linebacker getting whipped on opening day. Got dry hands? TF Man can fix that. Cracked hands? Cracked knuckles? TF Man fixes that. Skin so rough that it scares wildlife? Guess what? TF Man fixes that as well. I once saw a man put TF Man on his elbows and immediately go outside to chop wood with his forehead.
What?
True story. Well, maybe. This stuff absorbs faster than a linebacker reading a screen pass. No greasy shine, no girly glitter, no nonsense, just pure, rugged, man-level moisture. So if you ever fought a bear with a stick, or handed the stick to the bear because you wanted a fair fight, TF Man Whipped Tallow Cream was made for you. Go to lumavita.com, grab yourself a jar, and moisturize like a man whose handshake could bend steel. TF Man, because real men don't have dry skin. They have legends. And guys, make sure you go over to Lumavita and check out their wonderful holiday gift for your ladies. Make sure you go over and try it out. It's the best gift that you can get for your lady, and it's less than $100. Go over there, get them done because they do them by hand. Get your order so that you can get it before the holidays. And be like Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Leonard Moore, and be the effing man. And guys, we get into Notre Dame's 49-20 victory over Stanford. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the last couple of weeks Notre Dame hasn't. Look, that beatdown they gave Syracuse is indicative of what Notre Dame can do. Miami had to keep their players in through 4 quarters. Notre Dame doesn't have to do that. Just so you Miami fans know that. But I will tell you, there are a couple of concerns. I will start with the defense. I didn't see very many things. I will say this, that Stanford scoring 20 points in this game was a little bit concerning, but then I look at it and it's 14 points in the fourth quarter when majority of the guys are on the bench, and it's just like, what are we doing? You know, everybody that watches this game, if you're going to look at the game and do mathematical equation here, Notre Dame had their second unit out there. Miami fans, stop it. You played your starters all the way. If we wanted to and have that classless attitude, we would have put up 70 on Stanford. We would have put up 70 on Pittsburgh. So please don't do that. But you look at, I think it was Elijah Brown was a guy that I think they said had some opportunity. No, it was Charlie Meyer. It was one of the two of these guys that ended up having his first opportunity, and I think it was Meyer, and he ended up scoring his first touchdown. So I thought that was a good moment for Stanford. And, you know, you like seeing guys that stick around, and the coaches happily reward these young men that stick around in a program that has really not been going very far. They also have their coach. As Frank Reich, who's a former Carolina Panther head coach, will be stepping away from the team after Stanford has presumably selected their quarterback going into the future. But I will say that outside of a couple of things that I thought Notre Dame did exceptionally well, there are some concerns for me. I know a lot of people were excited about the fourth down play that went for a touchdown to Luke Talich, who is consistently showing he is a Swiss Army knife of a type of a player. Very impressive for the senior to get out there and get an 84-yard touchdown grab on fourth down. For the most part, I was pleased. But then I think ultimately we got to also go back and it took Josh Burnham to throw this pass on fourth down off of a fake punt. And this has got to be concerning if you're an Irish fan, because needless to say, you know, you like that, but then again, you also got to come into the realization that why did it take that much? You know, this should be I know people are going to say this was a dominating performance in any case. It was, but it wasn't. And because when you look at, from my point of view, and I'm not trying to paint a narrative here, it was more dominating than what, you know, Miami was able to do. You know, people are going to look at that defense and say 7 points, but let's keep it in perspective. If Notre Dame doesn't take their guys off the field, this ends up being 49-6. And I think ultimately the committee can look at that and say, okay, fourth quarter, 14 points, stop it. Just stop it. And when you really draw comparisons and you analyze how Notre Dame was able to do this, you look at, I think an element that is going undaunted by a lot of teams in this CFP thought process. Yes, Jeremiah Love is arguably the best running back in the country. He had 14 carries, 66 yards, and a score. And you get Jadarian Price, who had 6 for 15. But then you get Aeneas Williams, 10 carries, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. So meanwhile, while everybody's sitting here talking about Jeremiah Love, it could very well be we end up seeing Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams on the field at the same time, or even Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price or Aeneas Williams on the field at the same time. Because when you put these guys on the field and let's say you ran a situation where you ran a fake handoff to Love and then ran the toss to the outside with Aeneas Williams. I would love to see those old pro-style offenses come back and Notre Dame put them out there in the playoff, put Aeneas Williams and a Jadarian Price or Jeremiah Love. Do you realize how tough that would be for a defense to stay disciplined? It would be impossible. You put these two guys on the field, either one of these three guys on the field at the same time, or even put Jeremiah Love out there and put Aeneas Williams and Jadarian Price in the backfield in a pro style with Jeremiah Love out there with his ability to catch the football, I would absolutely drool at what defenses would want to do. They wouldn't have an answer, because you can easily say put him out there with a guy like Luke Talich, who's a hard-hitting guy who's shown he can catch the football, and as well as Eli Reardon, put him out there and then run that bubble screen with him. Could you imagine? It's hard enough to tackle Jeremiah Love in the box. Could you imagine those corners having to tackle him out there on the perimeter? Just saying, when I say Mike Denbrock, and I'm questioning the passing game a little bit, but I think ultimately Denbrock's got some other stuff up his sleeve. Like a lot of those passes we saw against Texas A&M and some of those we saw against USC. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. There are going to be a lot of teams that are going to have to deal with Malachi Fields. I'm going to be honest with you. That is going to be a headache for anybody. Not to mention you got Jordan Faison and possibly Jaden Greathouse. And not to mention Will Pauling. And not to mention we've heard people on certain podcasts talking about the beast that is Eli Reardon. This team has not reached its max yet. That is what a lot of people don't realize. This team is loaded talent-wise. Will Pauling's been quiet the last few weeks. Hell, Malachi Fields didn't really do anything in this game, y'all. I mean, look, Fields had 3 grabs, 22 yards. Faison had the big game. He had a 54-yarder. And you look at Eli Reardon, 2 for 9. Pauling, 1 for 8. Jeremiah Love only had 1 catch for 6. This is one of those games, y'all, that you just want to put this on film and have everybody confused. This is what I think Denbrock did purposely. Because ultimately, when you get in the college football playoff, which, like I said, that's not a slam dunk, but I think ultimately teams are going to look at this and they're going to say, that was it? Everybody else is going to say, that was it. The playoff committee's seen this team, and they keep in mind what it is. You go out there, and this is where I am semi-concerned about CJ Carr, but then again, I'm not. You look at this, they had 187 yards on the ground. Like I said, I am concerned that Notre Dame came into this game, and nothing beats real reps. And I get it. They're playing against one of arguably the best secondaries in the country at practice. Realistically, there got to be plays that we absolutely got to start taking a chance at. Because ultimately, what is going to win us a national championship this year is our ability to make that running game work for our passing attack. Getting guys like Will and Pauling in one-on-ones. Getting guys like Jordan Faison down the field. And Jaden Greathouse if we get back. If we can start hitting these deep ones, and Mike Denbrock, short stuff is not going to cut it. We're going to have to open this offense up and make sure you keep Malachi Fields on this high level. Now, obviously we can't do that because that was the finale. But when you look at the way Malachi Fields was used, the way Will Pauling was used, it's almost like Mike Denbrock was holding something back. And what I really hated, and I can honestly say, this is what I hated about us playing A&M in Miami so early. You didn't see the Malachi Fields that we're seeing now. He didn't have any reps underneath him. You didn't see the Will Pauling that we saw. That's why it's so tough when you rely on everything playing itself out. And I really hope that the committee takes into effect how great this team is looking in all 3 phases. Because here's the reality. Notre Dame is not just good on the offensive side or running the football. They're taking the ball away on defense. Leonard Moore is showing why. Don't play with me. Other teams are going to see this game on film and they're going to say, look, we have got a game plan away from this guy. And that's where Chris Ash is going to have to definitely be. If we play somebody like an Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith goes with Jeremiah Smith. Or like he did with USC with Lemon. He follows him. You make somebody else beat you. You do not let a certain guy that you know is the star player on the opposing side beat you. As I said, offensively, I was impressed. Ty Washington, the big tight end transfer, got him another grab. And ironically, like I said, he's seen the end zone more than Eli Reardon. Unreal. Um, when the running game is running like this, with Aeneas Williams leading the way with 83 and Jeremiah Love with 66, and like I said, Jadarian Price had a real not much of a Price type day. It's more along the lines of it's looking as though he may be being saved for the college football playoff. But then, like I said, Jeremiah Love had to deal with a rib issue as he looked like it. To me, it looked purposeful where he dropped his knee into his side. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it wasn't that bad. Well, you don't never know. It looked like a WWE move to me. But overall, I looked at the way Kenny Minchey ran the offense, 5 of 8, 48 yards. He looked pretty good on some throws. Ultimately, I don't like the way our offense looks throwing the ball. And I get it. It's probably because this is going to be the game when the college football playoff teams or our opponent is going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, this is what we got. This is what Notre Dame likes to do, and they're definitely going to turn on special teams. So that I thought that was a great thing to have to put in there, because it's one more thing. And I remember hearing those on Irish Nation talk about this. Was it Talk Like a Champion Today? I don't remember what it was. It was a podcast that's part of the Locked On. They were all talking on the roundtable, and they basically said in a nutshell, this is a situation where if you got a team that adds another extra wrinkle, that's just one more thing you have to stress yourself about, as opposed to just offense, defense. You're going to have to get your guys out there to be aware, and ultimately that opens up the ability for teams to not be able to pass rush. They're going to look out for things, which will allow you not only to pin teams beat deep, because what eventually happens is they're so focused on what they need to do to stop the fake. Even the punt returner is amazingly aware. He may not play 40, 50 yards off the line of scrimmage. He may play up about 15 to 20 yards, which would allow you to get those opportunities to pin punts inside the 10 or get those rolls and no returns. We all like when there's no returns, especially when you get up into the college football playoff and you get a lot of these elite athletes. But not a bad job by the offense. I still think it's watered down for the most part. But let's look at the defensive side of the ball, which in my opinion is just getting absolutely just really peaking at the right time. As we saw Cole Mullins and Drake Bowen combined for a half sack. And then we saw Madden Faramo get a sack as well. And we had quite a few tackle for losses, starting with Luke Talich. And, when you really start to break down how good this defense was against Stanford, especially Leonard Moore, he had 3 pass breakups, including that interception. You really have to sit there and you have to look and think about how dynamic this secondary has been lately. I mean, this is without Tay Johnson, who did not play in this game due to his injury. And as I said, this is not one that you can look at. But I tell you, Adon Schuler is continuing to do and state his case as to, why he's one of the best underappreciated big upper class safeties in all of college football. And he's turned it on since his suspension. You can really see this is a guy who is really ready to take his game to another level. And I just don't think a lot of people appreciate just how well he's played. Jalen Stroman, I think we lost him to injury. But he finished with 4 tackles along with Jalen Sneed, Jalen Osbury, Jordan Patella, as well as Drake Bowen having 7 tackles. Devontae Smith showing up again. Really doing a great job out there. Really starting to understand and getting a feel for what Chris Ash wants him to do. And if that happens, there are going to be problems in the college football playoff. And I'm going to be honest with you. The only weakness I can see, Christian Gray. And I mean, like I said, it's almost like I agree with a lot of the analysts that say it's feast or famine with Gray. I just don't know. It's like teams just consistently pick on him because he has poor technique and he makes bad decisions in coverage, or he panics. And yeah, and he's gotten a reputation from the officials of being that way, and that's never a good sign. You never want to get the reputation of a guy who commits pass interference because his coverage is either suspect or it's not as efficient. But overall, defensively, I love what we're doing. I love the fact people are going to say, oh, yeah, you gave up 20 points. Well, no, we technically gave up 6. So, yeah, you can call it what you will. These guys know what they have to do. They have to go out there and they have to really throw it down. And when you really start to look at how the pass rush is starting to get better, how they're getting their hands up, how the secondary, not only, if they're not getting hands on balls, they're laying the wood. That's what you want to see later on, because a lot of these receivers, they get these free releases and they're faster than their counterparts, and they're able to just run through guys. But then you got guys like Jalen Sneed, Jalen Stroman, as well as a Don Shula who will light you up coming across that middle. So, having said that, we look towards what the college football playoff offers. Now, many of you are like me. You know, you think they should be a lock, but then there's a lot of teams out there that think they should be a lock. And needless to say, it's not up to us to decide that. You know, that's what the CFP is for. And needless to speculate, I don't think they have a clue. I mean, we'll watch the show tomorrow night and we'll give our opinions and what we think. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Notre Dame's going to be in there, just like, you know, I'm hearing people saying, well, Alabama's the number 1 team in the SEC, so even if they lose, they should go home. They should get in. No. Well, you need to replace one of these SEC schools. Overinflated Ole Miss or overinflated Oklahoma, because neither one of them are going to do a dang thing in the playoff. I can tell you that right now. They can't stop nobody. I watched that Egg Bowl. I sat and I watched how they were just going up and down the field, just couldn't get in the end zone. But there were times they were able to get in. And I'm going to tell you, as good as Ole Miss offense is, now you get to see it run without Lane Kiffin. Question is, who's going to be running it? So, like I said, I'm not just saying that just because Notre Dame should get in, but the reality of it is the SEC is getting entirely too many teams that are unqualified. I said it. And you want to put more in there. And I tell Whinebum to this, you ain't got that many good teams. Half of them struggled with Arkansas, and here you go talking about, wow, they're the bottom feeders of the SEC. Well, your bottom feeder got destroyed. Got a coach fired. Keep running around here and telling yourself that you think Notre Dame ain't one of the top 12 teams. We know why you don't want us in. Because you're scared. You don't want to play it on the field. We might knock off Georgia again. Sorry, Brad. But guys, let me know what you think about Notre Dame's 49-20 win over Stanford in their regular season finale. Do you do you think Notre Dame should be in the college football playoff next week? Tell me why. Do you think that coaches need to watch the games more before they decide what's what? I think so too. Make sure that you leave your name down below if you are a new-time subscriber. Also, leave me a question down there. I'll get to it as, my guys over here know, Brad and the Format Podcast knows. I'll get back to you. I don't have any reason to not do that. I love what I do, and I think ultimately that's what it needs to be. But as I said, make sure you go over to the Facebook, Talk Like a Champion, as well as the group. Join and make sure you add us as a friend. And finally, make sure you go over to my Instagram so you can keep up with all my in-game season shenanigans that I will be caught up with at Mr. CeeLo. And drop me a line on occasion. But until we meet again, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun rise warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.